Hello, welcome to Furious Driving, and today you join me at the wheel of one of the slowest cars I've driven this year. It is an Uno 60 Selecta from 1991. A facelift tiny Fiat fun subcompact city car, which is absolutely brilliant fun. Right, if you like and enjoy reviews of interesting, unusual, classic, retro, modern cars, then please do hit the like and subscribe button to find out when more are coming out. Now this car is currently for sale at Stone Cold Classics at Rotham in Kent. If you would like to know more, then hit the link in the description below and check out this and other interesting stock. Oh, a Mark II Discovery, a Series 2 Discovery. Love those things. Now on with the review. Hello, welcome to Furious Driving, and today we have another Italian car on the channel. Now if there's one thing the Italians do really well, it's supercars. No, if there's two things the Italians do really well, it's supercars and big exotic super saloons that no one buys. Okay, there are three things the Italians do really well: supercars, super saloons no one buys, and super minis. And yes, today we have another one. This is a Fiat Uno. Not just any Fiat Uno, a Fiat Uno 60 Selecta, facelift no less. Now Fiat had already pretty much cornered the market of small cars across Europe and a lot of the rest of the world, to be perfectly honest, with things like the Panda, the 126, the 500, the 600. For decades basically Fiat have been churning out small car after small car which the world absolutely loved. And in 1983 they did it again with this, the Uno. And you don't have to be looking at these sharp, edgy lines for too long to realise that A, this is a product of the 1980s, and B, it came from the pen of Giugiaro at Italdesign, because it is absolutely a Giugiaro design. If you cast your mind back a couple of years to the late 70s, it does look a lot like his concept, the Lancia Mega Gamma, which is kind of boxy and high-roofed, much as this is. So it's taken a lot of those ideas from a few years previously and put it into production just here. Now it was a pretty much instant hit. Everyone seemed to like the sharp, edgy styling, the nice little quirky design features, which we'll go through in a second, and the way it drove, the way it looked, the way it was packaged, everything worked. And so in the first year here in the UK, they sold 20,000 units. And in 1984, it beat the Peugeot 205 to European Car of the Year, which is pretty good going. And the success didn't stop there. In 1988, the second to last year of the pre-facelift model, it went on to its best year ever with 40,000 units sold. And that's just here in the UK. Okay, so starting at the front, although yes, this is a facelift car in 1989, it did get a complete new front-end design. It is still very much that old 1980s thing of not quite the Sierra Jelly mould yet, but certainly we're working towards that. We've got integrated indicators, wraparound lights, the plastic impact bumpers which are integrated into the shape of the car rather than tacked on the front as in the previous decade. So it's all looking much more modern than previous generations of car. Then we have the windscreen. This nice curved wraparound screen looks brilliant and still very modern. But then, more importantly than that, look at this single wiper, one wiper. Let's have a look at the triangle of doom when we're on the road, but this is a big exciting thing, which means this scuttle, which is plastic, only has one central three-pronged washer unit in there, and it means left and right hand drive is the same, cuts down manufacturing costs and looks symmetrical and very cool. Then we have these funny little stalky mirrors which can be adjusted manually on the inside of the car. This is a rubber gaiter around it, so it's all adjustable and springy and foldable. Then check out these door handles, flush-fitting door handles for improved aerodynamics. The original models had a drag coefficient of just 0.034 CD, which is incredibly good for a boxy little upright Super Mini. It also means that it's quite a cheap design to implement in production, because you just have a recess just here. There's no external handle which costs a lot to make and to fit and to engineer. It's just a little tag here on the end of the actual mechanism itself. How simple is that, and how good for keeping the costs down? Now lastly, along the side of the car, not only is this a pop-out window hinged at the front, little catch on the back, again keeping the costs down for manufacturing, this sticker here is quite significant. Being a 1991 car, unleaded petrol was newfangled, exciting, dangerous, scary stuff. So this vehicle is designed to use premium 95 RON unleaded petrol. So yeah, exciting stickerage. Now, a lot of the car's individuality, style, character, charm if you like, and certainly its interior dimensions, which are very generous, come down to this rear end, this cam-tail tailgate, which is very squared off here at the back, almost vertical in the glass as well. This is slightly redesigned in the Mark II facelift, which we have here, which actually improves the drag coefficient even further to 0.030 CD. So making it sip even more frugally on the go-go juice. Other things you may notice here at the back of the car are this rear bumper. Again, integrated into the bodywork, moulded plastic. But check out this rear spoiler air dam thing we have here. Again, very modern, quite sporty looking for basically a mid-range 60 and an automatic. And this is a one owner from new example of a car, and it's a completely original and unmolested, including the Marne, West London number plates with the 081 phone number, that goes back a long way, and the Marne sticker in the rear window. This is astonishingly original. Now lift the bonnet and you have to push this slightly doofy little wire coat hanger with a plastic button on the end to get into there, and you'll find in this example the 1.1 litre fire motor, the fully integrated robotized engine. So you don't call it a fire engine because that'd be a fire engine. In this particular example it is the 1116cc fire, which makes 58 PS and 87 Newton meters of torque, and it is married to a CVT gearbox, which is an interesting thing. We'll talk about the rest of the range inside the car because it's really cold out here right now. Right, let's look around inside this little beauty. It is much brownness, much houndstooth check cloth, which looks rather nice with the red exterior. The door cards, well, the doors themselves are extremely thin. Let me just take you back out again for a moment. Show you how thin those doors are. They are very thin. Door cards almost entirely this fabric covering with softly padded vinyl at the bottom and harder vinyl up at the top. Good sized pocket for lots of gubbins, wind up manual windows, plastic everything, little door armrest, and look at the little nubbin for adjusting the mirror. It is minuscule. It's a very tiny nubbin. Climbing in is easy because there is a ton of headroom up there, making it very easy to get in and access. And then the seating position is really good. I am in a perfect seating position already. Now, for 1991, we are fairly well equipped in a small economy car. I'm mightily impressed by what we have. Let's take a look around. So first of all, we have a sub T-shelf here in the top corner, which has got a little air vent just there as well, so you have a bit of ventilation blowing on to demist that window. Moving across the binnacle, we'll come back to that in a second. We have a massive T-shelf here. This is a Rover R8 rivaling T-shelf. I always thought the Rover R8 was king of the T-shelf. I always say if you're picnicking in a car, you cannot beat a Rover R8. However, I've not driven an Uno. This is quite incredible. I believe this is a facelift dashboard, so it was changed in 1989 for this newer style. However, they were taking their snacking on the road responsibilities seriously. You can put as many small coffees, tiny pastries, olives, and other national Italian stereotypes as you want in this area up here. It's quite amazing. Ventilation wise, there is venting up onto the windscreen, there's another vent to the passenger window, and there's big vents here in the main body of the dashboard itself, over to the left, in the centre, and to the right. Yeah, it's very practical, very well thought out. Moving back to the main binnacle, it's fairly simple. Only 3 dials: fuel, speed, and temperature, nothing more. Top speed is listed as 120. I'm not quite sure what the CVT will do. It's not that though. This car though, check the mileage out. Can you read that? 28,841. This car is like new. This was the proverbial one old lady drove it to the shops once a week, or possibly an old man, I don't know. This is the perfect classic retro find in many respects. It's quite remarkable. Moving back, the steering wheel is a hard rubbery material, 4-spoked. It looks a little bit Peugeot-ish in a way, and hidden behind it we have got a tiny brown, almost unmarked hazard light switch, so they've got a lot of confidence that their car will not break down and require that. Now this is quite interesting. Let me put this wheel onto a tilt and show you. Now you might not be impressed or excited by the fact this has got 3 fairly ordinary stalks for the lights, the indicators, the wipers, as Fiats have had going back to I think the 1960s, this arrangement. In fact, most cars in Europe had something very similar. However, when the Mark I version of this car came out, it had an ergonomic designed kind of tumbler system on the side of the binnacle, which is supposed to be much easier and you could use it without taking your hand off the wheels. However, they decided with the facelift to go back to the original traditional stalks. Whoa, whoa, the wiper. The wiper does stuff. Check out that triangle of doom. Ugh, final test on the steering wheel area is the horn. Horn test. Unmarked horn. You have to guess where it might be. A raspy part. On the right hand side by your knee there's nothing else, there's just one speaker grill. No speakers in the door, just a single speaker down there and a matching one on the other side. There is a blanked off panel for who knows what excitement that we could have had but we didn't. Up the top here in this area of brown we've got the rear wiper, rear screen heater, rear fog, I guess that would be a front fog if you had it, and a digital clock. Exciting times. Big air vents, as we mentioned, and then ventilation. And check out the industrial design of these graphics. It's such a 1980s a sports centre, swimming pool style thing of where the airflow and temperature graphics are around the side. I love this so much. Again, everything absolutely the brownest of brown, as you can imagine. Below which we have got the original Grundig radio. This came with the car. It is fairly basic. Cassette, 6 presets, it's FM, it's all you need really. Under which we've got a massive cubby hole, so plenty of room to hide toys and gubbins. And then moving back here, instead of, well, what I consider to be a proper gearbox, we have got a CVT. This was developed in conjunction with Ford and Van Doorn in Holland, the Dutch company, because they all wanted a CVT gearbox for their nefarious reasons. It has got quite a curious little logo on top of there, which says CVT in a red logo and a kind of a figure of 8 thing, which I guess represents the way it works. Moving back, we've got big handbrake and the seat reclination controls here in the centre for both seats. And check out this seat fabric. On the outer edges, we've got the same houndstooth micro check as we have on the door cards. In the centre, we've got a bigger check. They are very tough, very hard wearing, tweedy fabric that will last forever, that will outlast cockroaches and Volvos. Surprisingly comfy and springy, actually very comfortable indeed. Adding to your list of brown stuff is this lift up switch to roll the seat forward, and check out this mechanism. That's wonderful, more brown there. And in the back of the car, lots of room again. Once more, quite easy to get into. It's a little bit tight shoulder width coming past the seat, but then, okay, it's a bit tight on the knees for an adult, but if you've got kids, yeah, we'll be fine. And the headrests are these interesting look-ye-through headrests, so you can actually see through them when you look over your shoulder. Very clever. We've got more of this houndstooth cloth, which is nicely edged with more brown plastic. As I mentioned earlier, the pop-out window at the back, a brown hand grip, and an enormous load space cover parcel shelf thingy, and 2 more speakers here in the back. There are 3 seat belts, 2 inertia reels and 1 lap belt, so it's a pretty practical family car. You've got to like this thing, you really do. Oh, I've just noticed even the rear view mirror surround is brown. Everything inside this car is a shade of brown or beige, mostly brown. You've got to respect that. I love that mechanism. Now let's have a look in the boot. Little square button to get in there. And check out that boot space. That is huge for a car of this size. It's amazing. All carpeted as well. So coming into the 1980s from the 1970s and now into the 1990s in this one, it's becoming really quite comfortable and quite well appointed, as we would expect. You can see from the indents in the thin carpet that there is a spare wheel under there and a jack and a toolkit. It's all original. A little bit of foam for sound deadening. The back of the speakers, the inertia reel belts, but that's a lot really in here. No mod cons, although there is no interior panelling on the inside of the tailgate, just some warning stickers about stuff, because at this point in time you really didn't get that. If you want to close the boot from the inside, you risk your fingers on the sharp edges of the pressings. That's how things were in those days. We had it tough, but we didn't mind. Right, a little 4-cylinder fire engine, oh, I just said it wrong, sparks into life quite happily. Now, let us engage boing drive. So you move slowly and gently between the things, and it responds well to that. It doesn't like being rushed, really. Boing drive away. Ooh, interesting little holder of stuff up here. Now this is an Uno 60, and the number on the back of these cars referred really to the metric power output rather than the engine size. So this one being a Uno 60, 58 PS, about 60 horsepower, that's why it's a 60. Now I've got to say, the CVT is very smooth. It's not rapid, but it is oh so smooth. And this comes from an era when automatic small cars were something of a rarity. Now these days, so much more of the market is automatic. We're becoming Americanized and electrified, and so it does seem a lot more normal than it used to for younger people. I'm not gonna say I think that's quite sad and quite lazy and a yeah, you should be trying harder if you're buying an automatic for a first car. I'm thinking it, but I'm not saying it. So back when this was new, an automatic small car tended to be someone's last car. Someone who'd got a bit older, was either not able or unwilling to drive a manual anymore, was downsizing from something bigger, and wanted a small car just to pop to the shops in their retirement. These days though, lazy who can't be bothered to learn a manual will be happy to drive a small automatic. Did I say that out loud again? Damn, damn, damn! Anyway, right, so this thing drives brilliantly. This is something the Italians do oh so very, very well, and that is small, fun cars that drive brilliantly and have tons of interior space. As I mentioned in the interior walk around, I've got more headroom than I know what to do with. I could be wearing a stovepipe hat right now and have room to spare. I've also got, well, lots of room to my left in the middle of the car, but I'm a bit tight on the elbow on the right. It's a bit Defenderish in that respect. And the ride is very comfortable, very pliant. I'm drifting along here quite happily. It feels a little bit taut, but soft enough to be comfortable. There aren't many big corners just yet, so we can't really explore the boundaries of its handling capabilities as such, but it does have McPherson struts at the front, a twist beam rear suspension with telescopic dampers and coils, and all together that does mean that it will twiddle around a corner quite happily should you so desire. This car's name, the Uno, comes from its production name, the Type 1, or Tipo Uno, and that followed on from the Panda before it, which was the Tipo Zero, the Type 0. These are internal production names, and in this case, it found its way onto the back of the car. Now, I mentioned earlier this was an immediate sales success, and that was no exaggeration. They sold 8.8 million of these things, making it the 8th most produced car in the world ever. And that's after things like the Beetle, the Model T Ford, but significantly about 4 of those cars in that top 7 were all GM body platforms, so the J body, the B body, which means there's about 7 different cars on one platform. This really should be in place number 3 or 4. Way, wow, it leans a little bit. It leans but grips. It's not brisk. It's not brisk. We've hit the speed limit of 40 miles an hour in no time at all. Well, quite some significant amount of time, actually. The lean was so extensive going around the roundabout, it tipped all the fuel to one side of the tank and set the emergency low level light off. That's how much it leans. Oh, okay, maybe it's just low on fuel. It's a dealer car after all. Now, all that extensive production didn't only come out of Italy, where it was obviously produced for all of Europe. The thing was built all around the world. Even after production stopped in 1995 for the European market, it carried on around the world. Between 1989 and 2000, they built it in Argentina, and in Brazil, right up until 2014, they were still churning these things out in big numbers. And then it was replaced by a newer version, a completely updated version, which we didn't get over here. Got another Series 2 Discovery. Or maybe it's the same one. But it was also built in India, Morocco, South Africa, Turkey, the Philippines, Poland, and Pakistan. And that, when you list it quickly enough, sounds like a song from the Animaniacs. India, Morocco, Turkey, South Africa. Yeah, it's definitely an Animaniacs song. Disengage, Boeing drive. I'm gonna move the GoPros. Okay, we're accelerating. Now, when the car was launched, it carried over the engines from the car it replaced, the Fiat 127. So we've got a 0.9 litre engine, a 1.1 and a 1.3, and gradually those were replaced with more modern units, including the Fire engine, which we have in here. There was also the Turbo IE, which is a bit of a fire-breathing monster, one of those hidden hot hatches that is a little bit forgotten today, but really is something of a winner if you can find one. There were also a couple of diesels. In the Series 1, there was a 1.3 diesel, which actually had to have 100 kilos of sound deadening. And in the Series 2, there was a turbo diesel, which was a bit more, well, added efficiency and power, but those were never available in the UK that I'm aware of. Certainly the Series 1 wasn't. In the Series 2, this 1.1 was partnered with a 1.3 taken out of the Tipo. which would have been quite a nice thing to drive. A manual 1.3 would be really quite fun. Now I think the sales figures do say a lot about how good this car was and still is, and how well it was received at the time, when you consider how many it sold, and the European Car of the Year winning situation, when you consider what the competition was that came out at around the same time. Because launching virtually together with this thing was the Peugeot 205, the Mark II Fiesta, and we got the new Vauxhall Nova / Opel Corsa, and the Micra. All brilliant cars in their own right, and all heavy hitting rivals, and yet this thing managed to sell so many units. That was just goes to show how much showroom appeal this car absolutely had. It is not brisk. I mean, that is the understatement of the century. This thing is not brisk. Certain sports cars, I've hooned up that hill and had an absolute whale of a time barreling through that corner. However, this car with its 60 horsepower, 58 horsepower, and the Boeing-matic is it's relaxed. Let's call it relaxed. What a weird noise that makes going into reverse. And there is a lot to be said for a small, fun car that you can barrel through a corner in. You could argue I've maybe got one or two too many large four-door saloons and not enough small, exciting fun cars. Certainly that little Honda S660 I drove the other day was eye-openingly enjoyable. And this too is quite fun in its own unique way. 3 doors, 5 seats, tiny engine at the front, tiny compact body as well. It's great. I really like this. I mean, I could do with a bit more power. Although the CVT is very, very smooth, it'd be lovely if you weren't in the mood to drive somewhere, just needed to get to a place, then yeah, I can see the advantage of that. It does suck a bit of the fun out though, I've got to be honest. But if you're not worried about going places quickly, and let's face it, this isn't going to go places quickly, then yeah, I guess that works. That gearbox makes weird sounds. I think it's meant to make those sounds, but they are strange noises. These seats, certainly in the front, are astonishingly comfortable. You could go a long, long way in this car and still feel very refreshed. And also amused. The noises coming out of this car sound like some kind of sci-fi spaceship from the from the 80s, basically. It sounds like they've made a city car that was entertaining you by pretending it was on Blake 7. Maybe that's the robot from the robotised engine. Although the robotised engine does still have a manual choke on it, it's worth mentioning. Well, I hope you enjoyed this ride out in the little Uno Selecta. I have to say, I've developed something of a soft spot for this diminutive Italian over the last couple of hours. I've even forgiven it having a Boeing drive, which is, well, unusual, I guess. It's a bit of a weird extra feature of weirdness, which is, I guess, good. If you've liked this, as always, please do hit like and subscribe, and join me again next time driving something completely different.